well, boy, I wish I would have bought more stuff in. They don't say I wish I would have bought more, but they say, gee, I wish I would have bought at 2012 prices. Well, yeah, we all did. The only problem is you had to pay cash, and you were up against a ton of other investors that paid cash, and that was kind of the market. I wish I would have bought more houses 2 years ago. You still had to pay cash. There were still a lot of investors, but you did or you didn't, and that's how it goes. So right now, you've got to focus on what's in front of us. So the market that's in front of us right now is what we got, and we've got to deal with it, and we've got to, make sense out of it, and that kind of is that deal. So a good deal is, to me, if you get a house that makes you money, that's a good deal. Regardless of the price today, regardless what the price was, whatever. My two favorite things, and it was so funny because I ran across one on Facebook the other day. It was the most common thing that we heard in probably 2006 and 2007, and it was simply, well, I bought my house in 2002 and I paid 160, and I just sold it for, put in a number, 380, 400, whatever that number was. My statement always was, well, why did you only buy one? I mean, if you were such a clairvoyant real estate genius and you knew that houses were going to double, why didn't you, buy 10 houses? Well, and the actual fact is what? They got lucky with one. Mm-hmm. Buddy posted a thing a couple of weeks ago. Gee, I bought a house 2 years ago and I paid 80 and now it's worth 160. And of course, my immediate response was to start a, online battle about cats and everything else. Was, well, why didn't you buy 10 of them? Why'd you only buy one? Well, I had money for one and I'm living in it. So, okay, don't go crazy, but yeah, that's the reality of stuff. Here's where I feel we're at in a valuation thing, if you will. And when I look at these kind of stuff, I go, this is stuff you guys all understand. So when you buy something, you can pay retail, right? And retail is what? Retail is, that's full price. That's all that it costs, right? You can buy wholesale, right? And wholesale is probably what? 25% off, 30% off. I'm super cool with that. You may get super lucky and you may buy something at cost, which is probably where? Half. A lot of times, stuff is about half. And then what we're all looking for that's not out there, but we're looking for this, right? Oops. Right? This is what we really want. Right? We want stuff that fell off the truck. Right? So fell off the truck means what? Somebody stole it on the dock and then they sold it to you out of the trunk of their car. And it's right. So I'm kind of like you guys. I kind of go, well, this is 100% of cost. This is probably 70% of cost. This is probably 50% of cost. And, this is probably 30% of the cost. And we'd love to get that stuff, but it really, for the most part, doesn't exist. But, randomly we kind of search for it. And it all becomes relevant when it gets right down to it. So here's kind of a gut feeling of where I feel that the market is. And I got here in '87 for most of my career. Always did new homes. That was a huge part of the business. Mid '90s, had two different companies running at one time. One doing new homes and then one doing resale. I convinced all of my builder accounts that we needed to manage the contingency sales. So when buyers would come into the new home office, they'd buy a new house, they had a house to sell. Normally they'd go to an outside company and we really didn't know what was happening with that. So I convinced the builders, hey, we'll manage that, we'll sell it, we'll do those contingency sales, which was a great position for us. Company-wise, most builders don't like doing that because I'm not sure why, but they don't. And so that's kind of what my world has been. So, from probably about '87, we kind of saw this thing going on, which is like a 2 to 3. To every once in a while, we get a 10% valuation jump, and that's kind of what the market looked like. You know, we got into somewhere around 2002, and you know, we did this stupid thing, and we kind of did this, and then of course you guys all know the story, and the story was we did this, and then kind of here's where I think we're at today, if you will. I'm actually super happy about the latest Vegas economic indicators, and we kind of talked about this the other day, some of us. And so over the last 3 months, the real estate market's been what? Flat, completely flat. Love that. I got to be real honest. I love that. Over last year, we're up 10%. The year before, we were up 12%. I'm okay with those numbers. A 2 to 3% per month, a 10 to 12% per year means if you buy something, you're super happy because at the end of the year, you've got what? A little bit of equity, just a little bit. If you didn't buy, then what? I want to buy because I missed out, and you know, fear of loss is much more than fear of gain. But I didn't lose out on this, right? I lost out on this, which means next year I should probably do what? Get myself in a position to buy something because now's the time. This could be wrong, but I don't think it is. My gut feeling in life is if somebody would pay this for at some point in the past, then at some point they're probably going to do what? Probably pay it again, right? They'll probably pay it again. Especially when we look at what's happening with prices in California. Love California, hate California, do what you want with it. The reality of it is our value in our world is based on what? California, right? What happens in California trickles over here. From an investor's standpoint, it really plays out that way. I mean, I'm not happy about this, and it's one of the things that I hate about the foreclosure world, but dynamically it's changed from where it was 5 years ago. In Nevada, if a property is sold through the auction and the gavel drops, at that point, what? It's done. That house is whoever bought it. They're either going to get a special deed, they're going to get a sheriff's deed, and there is nothing. California, the gavel drops, then what? 12 months. 12 months. That buyer can come back and pay whoever bought the house at the auction whatever they paid and get that property back. So if you're in California and you're buying foreclosure properties, where would you rather buy? California, where prices are higher and you've got a 12-month period, or here, once the gavel drops, then the house is gone. So, I mean, that's a lot of the reason that people come here. You know, if you own rental property in California, and some of you may, and somebody doesn't pay their rent, then what happens? Like a year later, you can get them out, right? In Nevada, if somebody doesn't pay their rent, then what? yeah, 30 days, 5 days, 3 days, you know, they're out very, very quickly. So from an investor's standpoint, there's a lot of reasons why people from all over the country, all over the world flock to Vegas to buy investment properties, because it's legally, there's a lot of sound reasons kind of why that happens when it gets right down to it. So don't base any of this on this per se, but my feeling is if somebody will have paid this at one point, will they pay close to it again? And my basic feeling is yes. So this is kind of what I look at as a potential delta of money that could be earned. And in my world, this is simply opportunity. I don't know what that is, but I know that at some point prices are probably going to go higher than what they're currently at. Am I always happy about that? No, I'm not always happy about that. As I say, I like little rises. I don't like sharp spikes. And I was real nervous about a year ago because we did have a couple of months where we had some 10% per month, and everybody started getting a little bit rabid and everybody started getting a little bit crazy. But that seems to have settled down, and 3 months of not much going on is okay. Now, there's a second part of that 3 months that we've kind of had, which is kind of identified as August, September, October. Normally, normally people buy houses when? The best time that people buy houses is generally when?
Right.
Yeah, yeah. And spring and summer especially, because why? Kids are out of school, and look, let's be real honest. Who wants to go buy a house in December, January, February, because there's always what? Holidays and snow. Who the hell's going to go buy a house in snow? And these are things that we carry with us. I don't know if you guys do this, but around May, do you always get excited? And I don't think it's a spring fever kind of thing or any of that kind of stuff. I always get excited in May because I always think, what? School's almost out. I swear to God, I really feel that way. I mean, I've been out of school for a long time, but you know, these are things that kind of get built into our bodies. And we do buy houses in the springtime. We do buy houses in the summertime. And most of the time, most sales May, June, because you know that it's going to be 30, 60 days to close, and you want to get closed before the kids get back into school in September. I mean, these are just things that we do. So don't be affected by the trend that sales are going to be slow over the next few months, because honestly, that's happened every year that I've been in the business for the past 30 years. You read in the paper, sales are off in November, December, January. Well, guess what? Sales are always what? Off in, you know, November, January, February. But you know, those are just things that happen. These are things that we have to be aware of, so that we don't get too excited, we don't get too nervous about what's happening in the marketplace. So somewhere we know between right now and some unknown time period that there is going to be some sort of an unknown profit that is going to be available as an opportunity for people that buy houses. The most important thing I think is you've got to kind of look at it, and you've got to figure out the thing of, here's my payment, and then here's all of my costs, and then here's my profit. And it's kind of a 50-50 room as far as half of your agents, half of you are not agents. As real estate agents, and I'll be real honest, we always tell you about what? And I should probably do this. I'd probably put payment, but a payment, I'll leave payment up there, or rent. So you know, the deal being, so you rent the house out for $1,200, you've got $300 in costs, and you've got $700 in some sort of a payment. And so we entice you by saying, well, look, you're going to make $200 every single month, right? I mean, that's what we do as real estate agents. And as an investor, you look at that and you go, oh, that's pretty good, because at the end of each, you know, year, I'm going to do what? I'm going to have $2,400. And then what we never talk about, but we should, is at some point every single year, and I hate to say this, and if the real estate agent, the property management company, if you manage it correctly, this doesn't happen. But normally, if you rent out a property, then every year what happens? Well, yeah, and also what happens every year is what happens to the tenants. Yeah, they move out. And then my experience has been is normally when they move out, they generally take what? At least a refrigerator, washer, dryer, right? I mean, they take at least those items if they don't take some of the cabinets and some of the carpet that go with it. And so you've got a little bit of money that you got to put into it. At the worst case scenario, you got a little bit of rehab, or at worst, it sits vacant. And so you know, really, when it gets right down to it, from a monthly standpoint, you know, at the end of the year, you know, you're probably doing what? You're probably really not making any money, but we buy houses based on what? The appreciation of the value of the house going up. So that's really what we're working on, and that's what this is. We're buying now based on the appreciation. If the house just does nothing but cash flow, then we're what? We're happy with that. If I don't have to put money into it, or a lot of money, then to me that becomes a good deal. That's part of that good deal, right? And so the basics of that is very simple. The things that we need to identify, you know, is the marketplace going up in Vegas? Yes. Is Vegas a great place to be in the investor business for legal reason, purposes, other stuff? Absolutely. Can we buy properties now, and can we make them cash flow? And the answer becomes, yeah, we can. Not a big problem, not a big issue. So then this simply comes back to, how are we going to buy properties? And if you will, I kind of look at this, and I kind of go, this was my fellow off the truck. So I kind of go, this is probably nothing wrong with this, but this is probably where we buy through the MLS or some sort of a house service, and we pay full price, right? I mean, that's kind of what that is. This is maybe where, bless you, this is maybe where we buy it through the MLS, and this is possibly some sort of what we call a pocket listing. And not to take up too much time, but pocket listing, that term came about, and I always feel silly when I say this, but when I got into business, I caught the back end of this. I was literally 18 years old back in Nebraska. And back then, they used to have this big wooden, it looked like a library card catalog, and it had like little 3x5 recipe cards in it. And if you listed a house, then you would tell the board of realtors that you had listed the house. And once a week, there was a girl that would come out from the MLS, the board of realtors, and she would take all of the cards out of everything that had sold, and then they would put new cards in of properties that were available. So the reality of it is, your inventory was usually a week or 2 weeks old, but that was just kind of the process, and that's how it worked. Well, if you're a real estate agent and you found a new card of a really good property, you were supposed to write the information down and go look at the house. But if you really liked it, you took the card and did what? Stuck it in your pocket. Now, the ability for anybody else in the office to sell that house was what? None. And that was the concept of a pocket listing. Nowadays, pocket listings are stuff that maybe we haven't listed it on the MLS. Maybe we're kind of withholding it in-house. You know, we do that as a company. I do that personally. If I list somebody's house, I don't put it on the MLS for the first 30 days. And I talk to the sellers, and I tell my sellers, I go, look, I'm not going to list your house on the MLS. I'm going to keep it in-house. And I'm going to make sure that all of my agents, my friends, my investor, everybody else gets a first shot at that property. If nobody else wants it in that 30 days, then we'll put it on the MLS, and we'll kind of generate market and see what happens. And so you know, wholesale probably kind of falls into that area. These two items in my world, these are properties that show up at the auction. Now, somewhere, well, let's talk about this real fast. So somewhere there is the auction, which should be the absolute lowest price that happens. And then there should be all of the auctions and all of the other schemes that are out there that real estate agents use to market properties, okay? When I talk about buying stuff at the auction, I'm pretty much talking about the auction. And to me, the auction is the auction that occurs on the courthouse steps, except that we really don't sell anything on the courthouse steps in Vegas. Everything here sells at Nevada Legal News, okay? And those auctions happen every single day at 10 o'clock in the morning. If you'd have gone down there 6-7 years ago, that parking lot would be full. There'd be 100 people. And even though the prices started out at 20 or 30,000, they'd build them up to 40 to 60, and the houses were worth 120, 170, and the deals were a great deal, no doubt about it. Today, there's about 5 people, 6 people, right? George is probably there, that are there on a daily basis. And the prices aren't 30 or 40, they're 60 or 70, they're 90 or 120 on a house, but you're probably buying at about 30% below. So you're somewhere below wholesale, but not exactly cost. It just depends on what the property is and what it is. The issue with this is for the most part, these are sold as is, meaning that you got to break into them to look at them, and that's what people do. Just don't be offended by that. That's how life works. And you've got to kind of figure out if anything is good, bad, indifferent, no power, no water, no nothing. And so there are certain things that you can do. In the old days, the houses were a much rougher condition than they used to be. Nowadays, they're not that bad, to be real honest. There's another company that's entered into the Nevada legal news, the actual trustee sales company called auction.com. They actually have availability to go look at the properties inside. So they lock box them, they do some stuff. Those properties are only on Fridays. So they do that auction Friday morning, 9 o'clock, and we can kind of look at this stuff. We do a ton of stuff with Arizona tax liens, and we buy a lot of tax lien property out of Arizona. The only problem with tax lien stuff is there is a 3-year redemption on it. But I'm telling you, in 15 years and 20,000 sales, I think I've had one guy that came back and redeemed it. And unfortunately, it was a property that never should have been sold because it was a guy that was over in Iraq saving the country. And so the cool part of it is we got his tax lien, which wiped out all of the other mortgages. And so when he called us and identified who he was, we gave him the keys back. And so for what cost us $3,000, he burned an $80,000 mortgage to Bank of America, which I was super happy about. And so you know, those are kind of the things that you know are possibilities. So when we look at investment opportunities, it's kind of a matter of figuring out what's important to the client. That's from a perspective of real estate agents. For those of you that are going, hey, how do we get in on this? It's a matter of figuring out what makes sense to you. I still am a huge believer that condominiums are a great buy. And the reason that I think condominiums are a great buy, you have to pay cash. There's only 3 condominium projects in this entire town that you can get financing for. And a lot of that has to do with litigation, construction litigation. Some of it's leftover of the Leon Binzer HOA takeover thing. But these condominiums are working through this litigation. And as soon as there's financing that's available, my opinion, only my opinion, I think prices double. I think prices double because you can buy condos for $60,000 to $80,000. In some cases, you can buy them for $30,000. We see them come across the auction at 20, and we see them retail out at the MLS for probably 60, 70. I think, how long is it going to take for this financing thing to work through? I think it's within the next year, 2 years at the worst. So you can rent it out, you can make money at it, and then once that financing comes back available, I think those things double in price overnight. Houses, I think there's still great value in houses. You just gotta look for them. The good news is where we used to go to the auction 12 months ago, 9 months ago, and there was maybe 30, 40 properties that would come on in a day. That's a lie. That's true. 30, 40 would come on in a day, but then the banks would pull back probably 25 of them. So the available to buy was maybe 5 or 10. We're probably seeing 40 houses a day. go through the auction and are sold to whoever the lowest bidder is, or back to the bank, depending on what the price was. So the key of what we do, and George has kind of taken over ownership of this, which is a great thing, is we're going to be able to put out a list on a weekly basis that'll get sent out to everybody, and it'll tell you the availability of properties that are coming together, and then we're going to condition rate them. So if it's a 1, it's a crap box, meaning everything needs to be finished. Now, what I normally do is I kind of look at it from this perspective. And this is kind of what, flip guys kind of do. So there's the price that I'm going to buy the house at, whatever that number is. How much is a kitchen? 15. Okay, so 15,000 for the kitchen. How much is a bathroom? 5,000. Okay, and you're either going to have 2 bathrooms, you're going to have 3 bathrooms. How much to paint and carpet and fix up a house, basically? 3,000. And let's put an overall budget to fix it up, and let's say that let's go 8,000, right? So you just have to look at it, and because a lot of these things you do buy kind of unknown. So you look at it and you say, okay, so I'm going to get the house for 80,000, and then I've got 15,000, and I've got 2 of these, and so I got 10,000, and I got 8. So it's like I need $40,000. So I'm going to buy it for 80. I'm going to put 40 in it. And so I'm at 120, and then if I sell it right away, then I'm going to have to do what? Pay higher taxes, well, commissions, right? I'm going to pay commissions on it. I'm going to pay higher taxes on it. I'm going to do all of that kind of stuff. If I hold it for 2 years, then I'm going to do what? I'm going to have to make the payments, and I'm going to have renters in there, and I probably have to go and replace the carpet in a year, but then I'm going to pay a little bit lower taxes. So you can figure out what these numeric numbers are when it gets right down to it. Now, from a company perspective, those of you that are not with the company, here's what we're playing with, because I think it makes sense to me. The worst part about this is, so I buy the house for 80, I put 40 in it, so I'm at 120. So I'm in it for 120. And I mean, let's just say that this is probably very realistic numbers. We can find these numbers all day long in town. And I make $180,000. And so the only problem with that is that makes me what? That makes me 60,000. That's fairly respectable, right? Except that I got to do what? I got to pay the commission, right? And so I've got what? I got a $9,000 commission. I've got 30% of taxes, and I'm probably going to pay 37%. So yeah, so I'm going to pay that, and so then all of a sudden it kind of gets to the point where it goes, geez, it was a great deal to start with, but all of a sudden the costs have done what? Whittled it down. Now this is my personal thing, and then the agents that are in the class or in the room here, they kind of know the story of this. This is what bothers me, and sometimes the numbers are much more dynamic than that. I mean, just so you know, just to back up on top of this, when we buy houses at the auction for people, we charge $2,500. That's our total fee to buy a house for somebody at the auction. So if somebody says, go to the auction, buy us a house, then the fee is $2,500. The problem is that you could, in some situations, buy this house for $80,000, and you could pay a 6% commission, right? And so that's approaching somewhere in the $5,000 range, and then you sell it, and there's $9,000. So all of a sudden there's $14,000 in commissions that are paid, and the owner of the property probably netted what? Not to be weird. It's like, what the hell? how did the real estate agents make more than the person that facilitated the process and did all of this when it gets right down to it? So when we work with investors, when we work with investor clients, we base our commission on whatever the profit was. And so normally we're going to charge between 8 and 10%. Don't get afraid about this. As the commission, but it's based on the profit. It's not based on the overall sales price, okay? So we kind of partner up with you in that. If you don't make a larger profit, then we don't make a larger commission. The idea is we want the investors to be what? Happy. Because if you buy one and you make money, you generally have a tendency to do what? Buy another one. Yeah. Yes, sir.
8 to 10%. Well, first of all, 9,000 is 15%. That's
right. No, yeah, okay.
But the 8 to 10%, that seems high because I was a licensed rule.
Right.
You know, and it's usually 3.3.
Yeah.
You know, so why is it 8 to 10?
Well, because it's on the profit. So instead of being 10% on the 180,000, it's going to be 10% on the 60,000. Yeah. And we'll even kind of look at your costing out of it. So we'll take that 60, we'll minus out your, the commission will be included in that. If you do a buyer contribution, you know, whatever tax basis you're going to be at, we're going to take it on the profit. So it's not even going to be on the 60, it's probably going to be on the 40, it's probably going to be on the 30. It's going to be a much lower amount when it gets right down to it. The idea, of course, is to facilitate activity to make investors happy so that you want to do more deals. You know, a lot of times, and it does happen, you buy a house and you make 40 in a year and you kind of go, well, that was okay, but I had a lot of risk and blah, blah, blah. The reality of it is if you could spend 4 a year, then you're doing what? Making 320 instead of making, or 360 instead of making 40. So the object is to turn them over quicker, turn them over faster, not get killed on your expenses and costs, make more money out of it, and simply do more deals. And so that's does that make sense? Yeah. So we're doing it on that delta of your profit, and I want to make sure you understand the delta of your profit is not just the difference between this and this, but taking all of the expenses and costs out of it.
It's off the net.
Yeah. It's off of a net number. It's a final net number when it gets right down to it. You know, randomly, we would like it if you would probably do what? Buy a house and hold a house and rent it out. We do property management. A couple of the things that we do with property management and right now we're running about 120 properties, and I haven't done one thing on any of those properties in almost probably 8 months, meaning I haven't had one issue on one property. And it's kind of funny, my ex-sister-in-law runs those for me, and she lives up in Salt Lake. And the way that we do it is when we get a and I'll be real honest, I would say probably, well, for sure 80% of our properties, the people have been in them multiple years. And part of the reason that we do that is if the fair market rent is $1,200, we always charge $1,100. And if I advertise this property for sale, I say that it's how much. So that's the amount that I put in the ad. And then we simply say to them, look, here's the deal. If you do an automatic deposit, then we drop the rent from $1,300 to $1,200. And we've had a lot of people that have said, well, I don't have a bank account. Oh, we don't have a bank account because why? Well, my credit's so bad I can't even get a bank account. Well, good. We'll go help establish a bank account for you so that you can do this. And so it actually kind of helps people kind of turn their lives around. And then we give them a list of all of the vendors to take care of everything in the house. And we say, if you don't call us to handle any problems that you have, we take an extra $100 off of the house. So we collect $1,100 and we do nothing. They take care of everything. And now, how does it work? If they have an issue or a problem, then they go online. We use Build Them. I'll give you all the things. I could care less. We use Build Them, which is a property management thing. They send an email that says our faucet is broken. The owner, we don't have to get in contact. The owner sends them something back and says, contact the vendor, get it approved. If it's something that's drip, 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 they call the vendor instantly. The vendor actually goes online and says it's going to be $120 to fix the faucet and this and that and the other thing. The owner approves that they take care of it, and we don't do a thing. So it's possible to stay out of these deals 100%, but have the clients 100% happy so that they stay in the property. Do I think it's weird that we've got such a high retention rate at the moment? Yeah, I do think it is. I also think that's happening because of the economy that we've come out of. A lot of people bought houses that were damaged by foreclosures and different things like that. And so they've stayed in those houses. I think a lot of those people are now to a position where they're going to start looking at buying something. They've repaired their credit. They've got their scores where they need to be, and potentially that's gonna kind of happen. Yes, sir.
What's your fee?
I charge anywhere from 6% to 8%. And what's the difference? The higher the price, the higher the fee. So if it's under $1,200, we charge 8%. If it's over $1,200, we only charge 6%. And I'm not so sure that we're probably going to go to 6 on everything, because we've now been doing this for about 4.5 years, and literally we're to that point where nobody ever calls us for anything. It's like wonderful. It can't get any better than that. So and so, you know, I think that from an investor standpoint, you know, you want to have that portfolio where you've got equal amount of properties that you're flipping on a regular basis, and then you probably want to have an equal amount of properties that you may be holding for long term. If you're in them in a good cost financial position wise, hold them long term so that you can, you know, make the uptick on value down the road. And so that's kind of the deal. So, you know, what we want to do is from an agent's perspective, when you're talking with clients, this is kind of the play of how you get people interested in investment properties. And that's kind of the basic formatting of what we do. Not everybody's happy with the auction. And I'll be real honest, the problem with the auction is still what?
Sight unseen.
Sight unseen, but even worse than that, you got to do what? Got to pay cash. The way it happens, and this is a huge trust thing that happens, the way that it happens is if they want to buy a house for $120,000, if we think that's kind of the magic number and they're hoping that they can get it from 100 to 120, they got to give us what? Money. They got to give us money. Now, the good part of it is, how do you do it? You get a cashier's check and it's made out to them. Not me, them. They make the cashier's check out to themselves. So they make it for $100,000, and then they get another one for $5,000, and then they get 4 or 5 of them for $1,000 each. They put them in an envelope, and then we put the address on the property, and we say the max they want to pay for the house is what, and you've always got to have what? You've got to have a max, and you got to go, that's it. You know, and that's part of the game at the auction, because you don't sometimes know if $50 or $100 would have wiped out everybody else. But you just can't get married to these properties. You've got to have a drop dead price. George and I see it all the time, and we see people that get excited about a house because they like it, and all of a sudden the price is, and you're going, well, what the hell was the point of that? Question about that?
I just agree.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why you've got to have, you know, you've got to say, look, this is, and you know, it's always weird with the auction, because there's always the estimated bid, and this is the price that shows up. It may show 60, and you may get to the auction and it may open at 20. It may be that the estimated bid is 150, and you get to the auction and it opens at what? 150. I mean, it opens above retail, and potentially that happens because the bank is in a position where they're going to net enough money out of actually foreclosing, taking the property back. They're going to get paid by AIG. They're going to get paid by Fannie Mae. They're going to get paid by Freddie Mac. They've got other pooling of money, and they're going to let it go at the highest price. They really don't want it to go back to anybody when it gets right down to it. So it sounds crazy, but once you do it and once people buy a couple of properties, they realize what kind of a good buy they're going to get. And once again, you have to do the damage factor, and the damage factor is what? If we buy it for 80, but the kitchen's only 10, then what? I'm money ahead. If I only had to replace one bathroom, not two bathrooms, then I'm money ahead. If I didn't have to rebuild the whole thing and I only had to build half of it, then I'm money ahead. And these are the unknowns, but this is the risk, and this is the reason that people that play in this avenue do make good rewards out of some properties. And randomly you do get one where maybe the spread isn't quite so small. Maybe you get to one where the spread is much larger when it gets right down to it. And so that's kind of our big play is kind of the auction stuff. There is stuff that we can do where I think it's an opportunity. I'm still not in love with them, but somewhere between wholesale and cost is short sales. I normally run when I see a short sale, but there are people that do it, and I always tell people, I said, well, look, I go, if you put in 5 offers on 5 short sales, that might work for you, because why? You're playing the odds of whichever one you're going to get. And the time periods are getting a little bit shorter. They used to go on for years and years and years, but normally you can get a short sale approved, done, whatever the case may be, in 3 months. There's kind of some funny wordage that you put in multiple offers, and this kind of sounds like one of those kind of a double statement deal, but this offer is contingent upon acceptance of the offer from the seller to the buyer, and the buyer accepting the acceptance of the offer from the seller to the buyer. And people read that and go, what the hell did that just say? Well, that legally said that if the seller accepts the offer of the buyer, which at that point the contract is what? Binding, the buyer has to do what? Approve the acceptance of the offer from the seller. Don't take this wrong, but most real estate agents aren't smart enough. If you put that verbiage in the contract, they'll miss it 9 times out of 10, because they can't follow what that statement is, and they'll just go, yeah, whatever. And it'll end up going through. So then the perspective of the buyer, you put in multiple offers and you get 3 people that accept your offers, and you decide which house you want. And so it becomes very easy to do that way. And then the tax deals, if you decide you ever want to go that route, just kind of let us know what that looks like, and we'll tell you what they are, and you basically just buy the outstanding tax lien amount. Those are normally $3,000 to $4,000. You can go ahead and sell the property, but you sell it with notification that there is a redemption period on there. You can't get title insurance for the first 3 years, and a lot of times what we'll do is we may buy something for $3,000. We'll sell the house to the people for $60,000, which, by the way, is good profit. And then we tell them, if for some reason that the redemption happens or doesn't happen, we may raise the price or not raise the price, or whatever the case may be. So there's a couple of different ways to play with that. That's a different deal, and that maybe is a whole different thing we want to spend an hour kind of talking about, because they get a little bit funky. Tax liens are great for land. We just picked up, we had about 2,500 parcels between Arizona and Nevada. We just picked up another 4,000 parcels that we got from a tax lien company. So we've got a bazillion pieces of parcel that we're selling. They're in the middle of nowhere. They're worth nothing, but we're selling them anyway. So that's kind of what that looks like. Any questions, any thoughts? I try and keep these right at, kind of talk about an hour, keep it an hour. Any questions, any thoughts, anything that we can help you guys with? Yes.
I like the 2,500 for the auction now. Do you research these homes? Can you get
Absolutely.
comps before, so you know what it's actually worth?
We will actually identify a property once it goes into the auction process. So meaning, the notice of default is sent out, and that's normally a 90-day window. Now, with the changes that they've done in Nevada, and we see this every single time. So it goes through the 90-day window, and then officially it's supposed to be that the notice of sale is posted, and then it's supposed to be 20 days. We see when they get to 90, they always add on another 30 days, and then they go to 20. So we start tracking stuff at this point. Now, depending on where you are interested in area of town-wise, we track very tight geographic areas. I don't track the whole town.
Right.
I've got 2 guys that'll buy anything that comes up in Henderson. I've got a guy that'll buy up anything that comes down in 89123 low. So you kind of tell us the graphic area you're at. We'll notice them as soon as the notice of default is issued. It appears, we start tracking the property. You know, some of the things that we want to know about is number one, do the people still live in the house? Now, I used to hate foreclosures because I do believe that the banks are evil, and I do believe that the banks caused a lot of this. And I do think that good people got tossed out of their houses, and it was something that I always struggled with, and so we used to only deal with vacant houses. Nowadays, in order for you to get foreclosed on, you literally have to cry uncle and give up. Like they, you know, if you could stay, I mean, I know people have been in their house 6, 7 years and they haven't made a payment, but as long as they're still talking with the bank and communicating with the bank is not going to foreclose on them. Randomly, we do check with people and we figure out if they're living in the house. And we'll go knock on the door and we'll say, hey, we're thinking about buying the house. Do you guys want to stay in it? Because a lot of these people haven't made a payment for 6 or 7 years, and they finally realize that unfortunately their life is not going to come back to the way it is, and they're not going to be able to, you know, afford that house at the and all the things that happen. Which is super cool, because if they say, yes, we're definitely going after that house. And that may be the one instance where if my drop dead price is you know, 120 and I see it move to 140 or 150, I may go ahead and buy that house because I know that I'm not going to have what? I'm not going to have any repairs because they're going to stay in the house. So we start tracking if somebody's living in the property. We track if the property is vacated. We then will figure out, once we get into this last 20-day period, the for real 20-day period,
right,
we will get access to the house, and we'll get you in so that you can have access to the house and check it out. Also, how do we gain access to the houses? In very nefarious ways. But I got to tell you, the funniest thing that happened one day is I had a cop holding the ladder for me while I was up in the second floor breaking the window so I could get in the house. And he was super happy about it because he goes, because I told him, I said, well, the house is going to auction tomorrow. And I said, I got to make sure that everything is okay and we're going to buy it and we're going to fix it and everything else. And he's holding the ladder going, yeah, dude, do whatever you got to do. So, you know, I mean, we're going to get into the house. We're going to check it out. There are, you know, you know how it is. You can look and see if the electrical's whacked out. You can pretty much, you know, those stories about people pouring concrete down the drains and all that, I really don't know if any of that ever happened. I think that's like candy in Halloween, or needles in Halloween candy. But so we track that stuff. We verify if there's any liens, what they are. There's usually, you know, some sort of a Republic Services lien that is, you know, something, and then some of those can be wiped out and some of those can't. And you know, the nice thing about it is when you buy at the auction, you know, you pay them right away, and they give you either a special warranty deed or a sheriff's deed right on the spot. So, and not to be crazy, but if they give you either one of those, and don't don't go, Rick said, but if they give you either one of those and you don't sign them and you rehab the house and you turn it in 90 days, then you sign whose name onto it? The new buyer. And then you don't pay transfer taxes, fees, or taxes, but that's between you and the IRS. But that's, but there's a lot of plays that can be done on that.
The Nevada legal news. First time I saw it, it's very awesome.
Right.
Do you have that? You can bring it up?
We do, and we can actually email that to you. And we track that, as I say, geographically by area, and we track very specific kinds of houses when it gets right down to it. You know, my guy Frank only buys condos. You know, the other guy only buys single-story houses. So we track very specific stuff. It doesn't have to be that specific. If you go, I like this area, then perfect. And a lot of that is based on where you live. And for me, you know, my own personal ownership of property has always been based on where I live. I mean, I've lived my entire life a mile from where I'm currently at. I'm not going to buy a house in Summerlin because all of my properties are probably within a mile of where I currently live. We leave the driveway to go to Walmart and I go left instead of right. My wife knows exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to do what? Going to look at a house that's only 4, 5, 6 blocks away. I think that becomes critical because otherwise you're going, oh my God, what's going on with the house? Did the guys show up? Did they not show up? If you can check that stuff on your way home and stuff like that, it makes sense. You know, I've got another guy, he only, which I love him, but he won't buy anything less than 4,000 square feet. He only buys big houses. And so, and that's fine. I mean, people generally have what they like, what they know, what they do. And so, you know, we'll do all of the research. We'll determine high mark, we'll determine low mark, we'll determine what the rental value of it is. We will absolutely do all of that. So all you've got to do is look at a piece of paper and go, yeah, that sounds good. We'll go after that one, you know, or nope. And, you know, it doesn't matter to us. And you want to go to the auction and sit there and watch? Come. You know, you want to, you know, I mean, my deal is I give everybody everything. You know, there's no top secret information. All you got to do is a little bit of research and you can figure it out yourself. Hopefully you find that we provide a good enough service and there's good enough value in it. You go, yeah, this works out for us. And so that's the deal.
I have a question. It's
Yes.
not as bad as it used to be, but what happens when you have squatters in there?
The new law,
just came
you bet. You
police.
call Metro and they'll go down and beat them out of the house nowadays.
And when they come back, supposedly it will be a felony.
Yeah, it's a
Very
felony.
correct.
It's a felony. Yeah.
And
That's
they
the new
have
law.
to go to court
Huh?
to request to be back in the house, so we can change the locks right away.
You
Because I have
can.
somebody who's asked me to do that.
Yes. Yeah. That's, you know, because normally you can't change the locks because that, you know, becomes that unconstructive detainer. But now, after you've reported them as a squatter, even though they have a lease and they haven't made a payment, once they're past 5 days, and I've got buddies that are actually doing this now, instead of doing a 5-day pay up or quit, they're letting 5 days go by and they're calling them a squatter and they're getting them out in 2. Yeah.
So I would just need to pick up the phone and call Metro.
Yeah. Call Metro and
Give
say,
them the
hey,
address.
I'm a real estate agent and I just drove past this house and there's people in it and they don't have a lease, a right to be there, and they're squatters and I need you to come toss them out. And
Can I let them know that the people across the street let me know who
Sure.
they were?
yeah. The neighbors called me and told me, and
Okay. Do that.
so I mean, I believe that people have rights and I believe that people shouldn't be treated poorly and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, we kind of deal with some of that and it's kind of like, well, you know, that's the bad part of property management from our end is, you know, how do you get people out of this house? How do you do this? How do you do that? Well, it's so much easier now.
What if there are like 5 houses on the block that are occupied by squatters that they know of?
That would be one of my neighborhoods. If you can get a hold, and I'll tell you that it's a property management play. Get a hold of the owners and go, hey, we can help you get those people out of there if you would like. Because a lot of property managers just don't want to deal with it. And so then they almost kind of just ignore it and tell the owner, well, you've got to get them out and then we'll re-rent it. And it's like, no. Well, we'll help. I mean, I was down at the constable's office last week and there was a guy sitting at the desk at the other thing and he was going through this and that and the other thing. And, I handed him my card and I go, hey, give me a call. I can help you figure this out. Because he was an absentee owner. He lived up in Canada or something, which you're not allowed to do. And he had these people living in his house and he listed the guy's name, but it was like Clive and he put Kevin and then he didn't put et al, which is including everybody. I mean, there's some very simple wordage that you've got to put on that stuff because you got to make sure you got to throw out everybody, even if you don't know who they are. And that's the et al wordage that goes on to those things. So yeah, we can talk about that. Very simple to do. Okay. Any other questions? Any other thoughts? And we've got lunch. A few minutes later, we got lunch. Grab something to eat. Stick around. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk. Let's figure out what we can do. And that's where it goes. Okay.